There's a chilling proverb that haunts wealthy families, a prophecy whispered across generations, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. For decades, studies have backed this up, with some showing that 70% of wealthy families lose their fortune by the 2nd generation and a staggering 90% by the 3rd. Now, while recent reports suggest that the ultra-wealthy are getting better at breaking this cycle with a growing number of multi-generational billionaire families, the fear of that proverb is still what keeps the smartest families up at night. It's what drives them. This isn't a story about bad luck. It's a story about a failure to communicate. It's the result of a vacuum where financial literacy and, more importantly, family values should have been. It happens when heirs get access to the family's wealth, but not the wisdom needed to manage it. They inherit the assets, but not the character. But what about the families that do break the curse? How do legacies like the Rockefellers, the Waltons, and the Mars family last for centuries? They operate from a completely different playbook. They know that generational wealth isn't just about passing down money, it's about passing down a mindset. And that process doesn't start when a will is read. It starts in the quiet, deliberate conversations they have with their children, conversations that begin when they're small and evolve as they grow. This isn't about teaching kids to be rich, it's about teaching them to be capable. It's about shifting the family's focus from the privileges of wealth to its responsibilities. The old money approach is a masterclass in psychological preparation, a slow, methodical transfer of knowledge designed to build character first and financial acumen second. Today, we're pulling back the curtain to show you their playbook, the 3 distinct stages of conversations old money parents use to raise not just heirs, but stewards. Part 1. Early childhood, ages 5 to 10, the foundation of value. The first stage of this education begins long before anyone mentions a stock or a bond. It starts when a child is young, often as early as 5 or 6, because research shows our core money habits can start forming by age 7. Old money parents intuitively get this. They use these formative years not to discuss wealth, but to build a foundation of character that will one day support its weight. The goal is simple but profound: to break the link between existence and entitlement. They teach their children that money is not a given, it's a tool that has to be earned. The conversations at this age aren't lectures, they're woven into daily life, using real, tangible experiences to instill 3 core ideas: how to earn, how to choose, and how to give. The first and most fundamental lesson: money is a direct result of effort. While lots of parents give an allowance, the old money approach turns it into a powerful teaching moment. The allowance is rarely a handout, it's tied to work. And we're not talking about paying a kid to make their bed or clean their room. In these families, that's just considered part of being in the household, the rent you pay for living there. The real earning comes from jobs that go above and beyond, like helping with a big garden project or washing the cars. The task itself doesn't matter as much as the principle. Your effort creates value. A parent might say, "The garage is a mess, it's a big job. If you choose to organize it, the pay is $20. The language here is key. It's an opportunity, a choice, a micro-business deal. The child learns their time and labor can be turned into money. It's a simple act that installs a healthy, powerful belief. Money is something you create, not something you just get. It's the first defense against the toxic idea that you're owed a lifestyle you didn't build. The second pillar is teaching the discipline of choice, often through the classic battle of needs versus wants. Children in wealthy families are surrounded by abundance. They could have anything, and that's precisely why their parents are so strict about teaching restraint. An adult who can't prioritize will burn through resources, no matter how vast. This lesson often plays out in the toy aisle. A child wants the shiny new thing. Many parents might say, "No, we can't afford that." But that phrase is basically forbidden in these households. Not only is it usually a lie, but it teaches a mindset of scarcity and weakness. Instead, the parent reframes it as a choice. They'll say, "That's not on our list today, but you have your own money. Is this something you need or just something you want?" This simple question forces the child to pause and think. It introduces opportunity cost. If they buy this, they can't buy something else later. The parent isn't saying no, they're letting the child decide and live with the outcome. If the kid buys the toy, the immediate joy is quickly followed by the lasting lesson of an empty wallet. They're learning on a small and safe scale that every financial decision is a trade-off. The third and most defining element is the three-jar system: spend, save, and give. When a child gets their earned money, it's physically divided into three clear jars. The spend jar is for small, immediate wants. This is important. It validates their work and lets them enjoy it. The save jar is for a bigger goal, like a video game or a bike. This is their first real lesson in delayed gratification. The parent helps them set the goal and watch the money slowly add up, turning saving from a chore into an exciting project. But it's the third jar, the give jar, that's arguably the most critical piece of the old money puzzle. A portion of every dollar earned, usually 10%, goes in here. It's non-negotiable. This money isn't for them, it's for others. Then the parent helps them decide where it goes: a local animal shelter, a food drive, a toy for a child in need. This act of institutionalized giving does two things. First, it makes philanthropy a normal, expected part of having money, not an afterthought. It frames wealth as a tool for positive change. Second, it cultivates humility. It forces a child born into privilege to see beyond their own bubble and recognize the needs of others. This is the first seed of stewardship, the idea that the family's wealth isn't truly theirs, but something they're tasked with caring for to serve a greater purpose. By age 10, a child in this world may not know what a stock is, but they know something far more important. Money comes from work. Life is about choices, and part of what you have is meant for others. They've been given a moral compass, the bedrock for all the financial lessons to come.
Part 2. Adolescence, ages 11 to 17, the mechanics of growth. As they enter their teens, the conversations start to shift. The foundation of values is set. Now it's time to build on it, moving from the philosophy of money to the mechanics of it. The focus shifts from just earning money to understanding how money can make more money. This is where parents demystify finance and introduce their kids to the engine of wealth creation. The lessons become more abstract, but they're still tied to the real world. The focus is on three key areas: learning the language of assets and liabilities, feeling the power of compound interest, and making a first guided investment. It starts with a simple but profound lesson, made famous by Robert Kiyosaki: knowing the difference between an asset and a liability. An old money parent puts it in the simplest terms: an asset puts money in your pocket. A liability takes money out of your pocket. They use everyday examples. A parent might say, "Our house is an asset because its value is growing, but that flashy car in the garage, that's a liability. Every year it's worth less, and it costs a fortune in gas and insurance." They'll point to a rental property and literally show their teen the numbers. "Here's the rent that comes in, and here are the bills we pay. The money left over, that's cash flow from an asset." The child learns to see the world not by price tags, but by financial function. Does this make you money, or does it cost you money? It's a binary way of thinking that trains them to instinctively acquire income-producing assets, not status-sucking liabilities. Once they get what an asset is, the next lesson is on what makes them so powerful: compound interest. Often called the eighth wonder of the world, parents don't just define it, they make sure their kids feel its power. They'll tell the classic story of two friends. One starts investing $100 a month at 15, the other waits until 30 but invests $300 a month. Then, using a simple calculator, they'll show the teen how the one who started earlier ends up with dramatically more money. This lesson is designed to be awe-inspiring. It reframes investing not as a sacrifice, but as a superpower. The parent will stress, "The money you invest today is the most powerful money you will ever have because it has the most time to work for you." Every dollar you put to work is like a little employee, and eventually their earnings start creating their own earnings, building an army that works for you even while you sleep. It's a lesson in being a patient planter of trees rather than a hunter seeking a quick kill. With the theory understood, the final step is to make it real. This is where the training wheels come off and the teen makes their first real, small investment, usually in a custodial account like a UTMA or UGMA, opened by the parent. This is a pivotal moment. The teen goes from a passive learner to an active player in the game. The choice of investment is intentional. It's often a share in a company the teen knows, like Apple or Nike. The parent will say, "You love your Nikes, right? By buying a share, you now own a tiny piece of the company. When they do well, you do well." This makes ownership feel tangible and exciting. More importantly, this is a lesson in managing emotion. The parent is there to coach them through the inevitable market dip. When their $500 investment suddenly becomes $450, they'll say, "This is normal. The market goes up and down. We invested in this company for the next 10 years, not the next 10 minutes. You only lose money if you panic and sell." Losing $50 on paper as a teenager? That's a cheap but incredibly powerful lesson. It teaches resilience and emotional discipline in a way no book ever could. They learn that volatility is just the price you pay for higher returns. By the time they turn 18, they're light years ahead. They know the difference between things that make you rich and things that make you look rich. They've seen compounding in action and felt the gut punch of a market drop with a trusted guide right there with them. Chapter 3. Young Adulthood, Ages 18 Plus. The Responsibility of Legacy. Upon entering young adulthood, the conversations undergo their final, most important transformation. The lessons are no longer about personal finance, they're about stewardship. This is the stage where the real old money secrets come out. The conversations are about preserving the family's capital, understanding its purpose, and defining the young adult's future role. The goal is to prepare them not just to inherit wealth, but to lead a legacy. This stage is defined by 3 pivotal conversations: understanding the architecture of the family wealth, defining the family's philanthropic mission, and finally, embracing the role of steward. The first conversation is often a bombshell, and it's usually about the trust. A parent might sit a 20-year-old down and say something shocking. "We need to talk about the trust, and you need to understand, it wasn't set up to take care of you. It was set up to protect the family's assets from you." This bluntness is intentional. It shatters any illusion of the trust as a personal piggy bank. The parent explains that the assets are owned by the trust itself, a legal entity with rules set by the founder decades ago. These rules are guardrails to prevent the exact behaviors that cause the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves curse. They might explain that distributions are tied to milestones, like graduating college or holding a steady job. The message is clear. The trust is a system of checks and balances. It provides opportunity, but demands responsibility. The young adult learns they're not the master of this wealth. They're a beneficiary of a carefully designed system, and their access depends on their own responsible choices. Once they understand the structure, the next conversation is about purpose. Old money families know that wealth without purpose is a destructive force. The give jar from childhood now evolves into a formal family mission. The parent might ask the young adult, "As a family, what impact do we want to have on the world? What problems do we want to solve?" This elevates philanthropy from just writing checks to strategic giving. They might involve the young adult in the family foundation, giving them a budget and the task of researching charities for the family to support. This acts as powerful training, teaching them due diligence and financial analysis, the same skills needed to oversee commercial investments. They learn to evaluate a nonprofit's balance sheet with the same rigor as a business acquisition. They are being trained to think not just about return on investment, but about return on impact. Finally, the last step is to bring them into the inner circle. A key moment is when a parent invites their son or daughter to sit in on a meeting with the family's advisors. The instructions are simple and clear. Your job is to be a ghost. Don't speak, just listen and learn. Watch how we analyze the reports. Listen to the questions we ask.
For the first few meetings, they're silent observers, learning the language and rhythm of how the family's wealth is managed. Over time, they're drawn into the conversation. The parent might review a report with them beforehand and ask, "What do you see here? What questions should we ask?" In the meeting, they might be given the floor. "We're considering a new investment. My daughter has been reviewing it. What are your thoughts on the risks?" This is a carefully managed apprenticeship. They are learning to walk the talk, participating in real decisions with real consequences, all under a watchful eye. Many families also require their children to have their own careers first, to gain real-world competence before touching the family fortune. This intrapreneur phase is crucial, ensuring they bring real-world skills and a healthy dose of perspective back to the family enterprise. This final stage completes the transfer of not just wealth, but wisdom. The young adult now understands the what, the assets, the how, the structures, and most importantly, the why, the purpose. They have been transformed from a potential heir into a prepared steward. So, the journey from those 3 little jars to a seat at the family office table is a long and deliberate one. Families who successfully keep their wealth for generations don't just cross their fingers and hope to beat the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves curse. They fight it with a meticulous strategy that puts values over valuations. It starts in childhood with lessons on work, choice, and giving. It evolves in the teen years by demystifying finance, assets, and market emotions. And it culminates in young adulthood with a call to lead a legacy with purpose. What these families really teach is that at the end of the day, money is just a tool. In the hands of an unprepared heir, it's a weapon of self-destruction. But in the hands of a trained steward, it's a tool for building, creating, and contributing for generations to come. The true secret of old money isn't found in complex legal documents or exclusive investments. It's found in these quiet, consistent, and evolving conversations. It's the profound understanding that the greatest inheritance you can give your children isn't a fortune, but the character and capability to manage one. The goal is not to protect the wealth from the children, but to prepare the children for the wealth. If you found this look into building a lasting legacy valuable, make sure you subscribe to the channel for more strategies and mindsets that create true generational wealth.